Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining the podcast of the North South Dialogue Project. I am your host, Rituparna. This podcast is produced by the collaborative work of the International Policy Institute of the University of Washington and Doing Sociology blog in India. Today, I have Camilla Biswas with me. She is a doctoral researcher in the discipline of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Gandhinagar, specializing in ecological and environmental anthropology. Her doctoral research focuses on human nature interaction in the marginal communities of Indian Sundarbans from the lens of political ecology under the larger discourse of climate crisis. Her PhD thesis has also received funding from the INLAC's RS Small Conservation Grant. She is a junior fellow in the Climate and Energy Unit of Global Research Network, Think Tank UK, and has recently been selected for the Platinum Jubilee Women's Leader Project at the British Council. We welcome you, Camilla, to this broadcast, and I'm extremely happy that I'm speaking to you today.
Thank you, Rituparna. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Right. So let's begin the conversation with you telling us a little bit about your research field and the inspiration behind, your topic, both personal and academic.
Yeah. So obviously you gave a brief description of what I do. So basically, the main idea is that my research work is more of an interdisciplinary in nature. So I try to, break that hegemony of any disciplinary work, where it will fit in a particular discipline. But yet, because of the academic norms, I do fit into the anthropological subdiscipline. And, the main idea of my research was to, map the altered interaction. So what I mean by human nature here is in Sundarbans, I'm mainly looking into human, tiger, and mangrove, and how this interaction is getting transformed or altered due to the continuous, cyclone and flood natural disasters. So to be honest, I won't say an inspiration. Rather, I would probably say the word, responsibility here. So basically, my native roots belongs to Sundarbans, and I have spent my initial, days when I was born and my several upbringing years in Sundarbans. Though I was not typically, studied there or brought up there, but I have lived through that same cultural and social ethos of Sundarbans. Uh, so my family identity still adheres to Sundarbans. That native roots or the familial ties, or whatever you can say, like homeland is in Bengali we called as Desher Bari, which resonates to Sundarbans. And this lived experience of my own family and my relatives made me choose research sort of a tool to study more about Sundarbans and study more closely. And to be honest, coming from a marginal community, education in my family is a privilege, and I feel like getting that opportunity of doing a higher education makes me feel like I should maximize every possible endeavors. So that is both personal and professional inspiration. Yeah.
Thank you, Camilla, for putting it out so beautifully. So, I would also like to know a little bit about your research methods as well as the methodological challenges that you may have faced in terms of what we in sociology and social anthropology call it as the insider outsider dilemma. So, if you would, shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, thank you for this question, actually, because when I try to find out, because whenever we go to any field, before that we try to find which particular method fits in properly to our research paradigm, and somehow I felt that not one particular method, or sometimes people can call it as a data collection tool, was fitting properly. So I sort of try to employ a triangulation of multiple methods, but with a sort of qualitative approach. And I had household surveys, and a very very different thing that I tried to incorporate here, which usually people are very familiar with, which is we known as, participatory learning action or participatory rural appraisal. So I tried to bring those ideas from there, and I started to do something known as participatory mapping with sort of GIS technology. And this methodological framework sort of, tried to adopt the decolonial praxis, where I try to emphasize, on the collective inquiry with experimentation grounded in lived experiences and narratives incorporated through, various cartographic illustrations. And to be very honest, there are certain challenges, and first challenge is, I feel like, that to explain somebody what is a decolonial praxis is, and it becomes very difficult. But I feel like here there is no classical model to frame a decolonial research methodology. But my main idea was to, shift from the domination of Western discourses, which are often known to be very extractive and imperial practice, and we need to move towards methodology that embeds, indigenous or native voices, and in this type of research, it is not just about giving equal decision making power, or sharing similar role as a researcher to the locals, but it is about constantly reflecting on whom we seek to be accountable to and how we can do so. And I feel like it is actually about being, transparent, humble, and doing a very collaborative work. So in while I was in the field, a very beautiful thing that somebody said while I was carrying out my research was, why do you call it research? One of my gatekeepers, or one of my some key informants, says that, why do you call it research? How many times do you want to search us? So why not co-search, sort of collaborate? So that sort of, sort of put me into that thinking process, is that how can I go unlearn whatever methodology that we have been taught since we have entered academia. So it is just a small process of going outside this Western academic hegemony, and trying to give voices to the local people. And talking about problems, I think one of the thing is very important to understand, is that we often end up, romanticizing our field or our field work. But I feel like field work should be more like, a part of both research and individual growth and individual journey, and that journey should be itself accounted as our own lived experiences. And one major challenge that I particularly faced was, being a female researcher. Though I have my roots to the Sundarbans, I could easily mix with people. I had several similar experiences, brought up with similar cultural dogmas and ethos. But what kept coming back is that, how can a single woman in the field, without any male guardian or companion, is here? How can she stay? So these were the certain question which really actually put me into stress. And to be honest, a lot of people might not want to answer or bring to limelight, is that often women in field get harassed, and how much you are becoming a part of the community, you will still be an outsider. Even though I was even though I know a lot of about Sundarbans, I have familial ties there, but because I am not a complete insider, I'm not a person who is living 24/7 since day one with them, I was I was called to be an outsider, at least by some people. And these, there were certain questions that sort of tried to push me outside the insider realm. And when I was talking about being harassed, I wanted to bring this point out, that often male in powerful position, whether in urban spaces or rural spaces, tries to put over their power and authority over any female. And over here, while I was in my field, this local panchayat member had tried to sabotage my work and has harassed me in several times. And I think it became it sort of tried to pause my works, pause my field work. But again, I felt that because it was a long time, I had almost stayed there for 4 or 5 months with the people. I think people, the local people, came there as a rescue. They sort of came there to rescue me. They were like a shield to me. So often I feel like fieldwork, as I said, it's more like a personal growth journey where we face different problems, different challenges, and whatever we sort of read before going to the field. We do several literature reviews, we make notes and everything, but when we are in the field, we go completely blank. We find things that we have never encountered before, never read before. So I think thinking on the feet that time helps us a lot, and making that connection with the local people helps us break a lot of preconceived notions about how field works. So yes, these are several problems that I faced in the field, and how I try to overcome them.
Right. So you've already spoken about the challenges that you have encountered in the field. So let me ask you a different question.
Yes.
If you could tell us a little bit about your writing process and the way that, you're attempting to write, because writing also is as big a part of, or maybe the most important part of, writing a PhD thesis or doing a doctoral research. So, how has been this journey like?
So, to be honest, I'm just back from the field, and we know we get overwhelmed with the kind of information that we get. And because, at the end of the day, we have to submit a thesis. So, my takeaway from the fieldwork experience was typically to finding the possibility of pushing the margins of these methodological epistemologies, working with marginal communities, and questioning the established academic convention within the context of my PhD. But again, I would say within a boundary. So, because I was always thinking at the back of my mind that I might have to face the repercussion of taking that risk, going to a different form of methodology, which could eventually mean that the thesis might not be deemed valid or fit. So, what could be there an alternative? So what I try to do is, not only what we say in simple language is that collecting data, but also I try to analyze the data, whatever I have found out, with the local people. And I am trying to do that through a various visual representation in my thesis. And I am still in the process of writing the thesis, making sense of what people have said, because at the end of the day, we have to get back to that academic ideation of a thesis, how it should be formed. It should not be completely off limit. So these are something I'm keeping at the back of my mind. But also, the main idea about doing this sort of a methodology was to initiate a discussion of unlearning, if not deconstruction, but encouraging these rethinking the world from a global south lens, from indigenous local communities, from global south. And I would consider this as enough to contest the generalization of hegemonic assertion that has undermined these local indigenous knowledge. So if my PhD thesis could do that much, could start a discussion, could start a debate, I would think that I have done something from my thesis. Yes.
All right. Okay. So I think this was a very interesting conversation, Camilla. I'm really glad that you brought out these issues of the challenges of doing fieldwork in a site like Sundarbans. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rituparna, for giving this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you again for listening to this podcast of the North South Dialogue Project. If you want to join this podcast, please send an email to nsdialogue@uw.edu with a brief introduction of yourself and the research. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next podcast.